Welcome in on a Thursday at the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, where I am for you going to do something that initially might have you reach for the radio dial, but I promise you'll want to hear me out. I am going to make a case as we start today's show for politics. Now, before everyone freaks out, I'm not going to make a case for the side of politics that perhaps I align with, or that you align with, or anybody aligns with. I am not going to beat people over the head with, do your civic duty, patriotism, or any of those things. I am merely going to explain to you why we have arrived at a point where Monumental Sports and Entertainment cannot get a sniff of a stadium in Potomac Yards. They can't even get their stadium up for a vote in the Virginia Legislature because of the way that we, as America, have decided to do politics. And you go, Craig, that's a stretch. And I promise you, I'm not going to assign any blame. I'm merely going to explain the problem. So here we go. This is where we are in America. Politics is a show. And I am someone who is interested in politics, and I'm interested not in the show. I'm interested in it because I realize that what politicians do, and specifically for me as a D.C. resident on Capitol Hill, but if you are a Virginia resident, what happens in Richmond, if you're a Maryland resident, what happens in Annapolis, what happens in our local city councils, what happens in all of those places affects our lives. And largely, people don't care. They care about when it affects them, but they don't realize that we, the people, have the control. This was something that is a concept, an issue, a worry that is literally as old as democracy. Democracy, if you are like, where did that come from again? Ancient Greece. They were the ones who were like, government for the people, by the people. And some of the early Greek philosophers were like, that is a terrible idea because the people are stupid. Now, whether it's stupidity or otherwise busy, if you're busy putting food on your family's table by going to work or doing, your second job or whatever it is, then I get not having the chance to follow each and every little thing that happens in your city council, your state house, your county council, and nevertheless what is happening in the national political circuit. But everything in our lives is controlled by politics, from the where stoplights lights go to speed limits to what we pay taxes on, how much those taxes are, all of those things. And the reason this all eventually, slowly but surely, this lack of care winds up mattering in something like what is happening right now to the Monumental Sports Arena in Virginia is somewhere along the lines, especially as media expanded. First, newspapers way back in the founding fathers days of our country, ultimately into radio, and then obviously explodes in the 1960s with the Kennedy-Nixon debates, politics having a massive, or television having a massive impact on politics. It became about the show. It's not about what you did because, if you're a politician in 1820, what you did winds up in the newspaper. Sure, your speech about it matters too, but it's not like, anybody outside the room isn't going to have heard it. There's no radio, there's no television. Now, 24-hour cable news, everything is about, can you get attention? It became an attention economy. And as it became an attention economy, the partisans went to their polls. And I don't even know that that's a bad thing. Like, I'm not even sitting here trying to make a let's be civilized and have bipartisanship thing. I kind of think that if you have a firm set of beliefs on one side of the aisle, the best thing you can do is not bipartisanship. The best thing you can do is vote for your party straight ticket down the line and just hope that they enact the things that ultimately you want to see. But as it became the show, as it became about the attention, as it became sizzle, not substance, you wind up doing what Glenn Youngkin did. And to be very clear, while I will assign Glenn Youngkin blame in this, had Terry McAuliffe beaten Glenn Youngkin in the last gubernatorial election in Virginia and done the exact same thing, you could just sub his name in. This isn't about the letter next to his name. This isn't about the party he represents. It's about, now we're talking about a specific example of what happened in Virginia and why, and he's the one who did it, along with Ted Leonsis, who we'll get to in a second. Glenn Youngkin decided he was going to have a moment before he ever had the discussion about the moment. He and Ted grab their shovels. They go out to Potomac Yards, and it's like, hey, we're building an arena here. And it was about the press conference. They never thought past it. Oh, if we do that, how can anyone else say no? Because a lot of politics today is about just having the moment, having the press conference. Can you make the statement that goes viral on Twitter? Can you have your people being like, oh, on your side of the aisle and anger the other side? And what gets lost in all of that is that these people work for us. Is that these people are supposed to represent us, which is really hard to do if you never talk to us. It's really hard to do if you don't care if you're an elected Republican about the Democratic half or an elected Democrat about the Republican half. And so then it becomes about anything but the actual substance. Because here's what happens if politics had remained about the substance. If politics wasn't, and this is a media criticism, this I will absolutely criticize. The media often covers the horse race. Who's up, who's down. Oh my God, the biggest aid package in the history of the country just passed. What does it mean for President Biden? What does it mean for Senate Republicans? What does it mean for, how about what it means for me? How about what it means for you? And so instead of saying, hey, we would like to do this stadium at Potomac Yards. We've done a lot of research. We think it could work. Let's go to the citizens of Potomac Yards. Let's ask them what their worries are. Oh, they're worried about traffic. They're worried about funding. They're worried about this metro station. Here are the solutions. Hey, actually, that's a great worry. We don't have an answer for that yet. We'll get back to you. You come up with a solution. It is a process. It is about getting things done. It is pragmatic. It is boring. It's not very good for cable news. Instead of doing that, Youngkin goes out and has a press conference with a billionaire who no one wants to give money because he's a billionaire. And now both of them have massive amounts of egg on their face because late last night, one single senator, it feels like, although I do think she's probably representing a larger one and she's more than happy to take the political, hey, look at me press conference win. One senator is like, nah, we're not doing this. And she is, to her credit, standing firm on that because she's playing the game. But this is also another part of the game. And now I'm getting a little bit deeper into like how politics actually works. But like, hey, you shake my hand, I'll shake yours. It all becomes a negotiation. Here's what I would like for a bill. Let's take it now back to this one issue. Here's what I would like for a $1 billion stadium project that's going to affect 3 different jurisdictions, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, that has cultural, economic impacts on the entire region. Not to mention is now going to be the home of 2 of the 4 major professional sports teams in this town. I would like the people who are for to actually have the gumption to put this thing up for debate as a solo bill. Why is this then being used as a negotiating chip for tax relief for Hampton Roads bridges? That should also get its day up for debate. But that's not how it works. Everything gets put in through the budget process, and it becomes this giant pork barrel of nonsense where everyone gets a little bit of what they want and nothing impactful gets done, or big things get done in a way that's not actually optimal because you don't actually spend the time on them that they deserve because you're just busy trying to get your little bit of thing for your jurisdiction so you can go home and have another press conference and get reelected. And there's a million political reforms that it's a different show for me, but I got ideas, and they're not original ones. There's things that I support on how we could get around some of this stuff and how we could change the incentives for politicians from get reelected and keep the job to actually do something when you get there. But when it comes to the Virginia thing, this is an example of what happens when politics is a show instead of a manner to get things done. When it becomes about a press conference and a moment and a statement and who's up and who's down in the polls, and not about the actual $1 billion infrastructure project that would change the landscape of an entire region, which happens to be the region of the nation's capital of the United States of America. This is ridiculous that we got to this point. And I'm not talking about what happened last night. I'm talking about this whole process. The fact that this came out of nowhere and nobody had answered any of the tough questions. That we had the day after this thing came out, or the day that it got announced, it leaked the night before, we had NBC4's traffic reporter on the show going, this is going to be one of the worst decisions that the state of Virginia could make because of the traffic by Reagan Airport. And listed 5, 6, 7 deep problems with this project just on the traffic and infrastructure side of it. people getting to and from the arena and to and from Reagan Airport and to and from a place where people freaking live every day. They hadn't bothered to check on any of that and the feasibility of their solutions, if they even had any, to the problems. Nevertheless, where the money was going to come from, nevertheless, whether the taxpayers of the Commonwealth actually wanted to give it, nevertheless, did they actually consider the backlash that would come from the District of Columbia, a place that has put up, or been obviously the home, both spiritually and geographically, for the Washington Wizards for a long time at this point, taking the city game out of the city, what it would mean for the Caps, what it would mean for the Wizards. They were surprised at the blowback. That's what happens when you don't think beyond the press conference. And it is indicative of a bigger problem, and there are things that happen like this that have nothing to do with sports all over the country every day. But this is a pretty big one, and it has to do with sports, and this is why we're here. Because our system of the way we do things in this country, which trickles down to state levels and local levels, is beyond broken. I will offer one simple solution, non-political version. We should treat each other like human beings. And a lot of the times I get really upset on this show. A lot of the times I go on like genuine rants on this show are about situations where we fail to do that. Whether it's Snyder and all the stuff that happened with him that was incredibly human, whether it is, athletes behaving poorly that I don't think we're taking seriously enough, whether it is when these issues cross with sports or within sports, where the rhetoric just gets out of control because we see the people on our TV screens as characters in a TV show when, no, that's not a scripted drama, that's real life. And if more politicians looked at people on the other side of the aisle or the constituents that they serve as fellow human beings, not characters or votes, then we wouldn't be here. Because instead of trying to pull a fast one, instead of trying to always have the moment and the press conference and the power, we'd actually be looking to help each other out and do what's best for everybody. That'd be cool. And we wouldn't have this embarrassing day where Monumental Sports now has an arena plan that is hanging on by a freaking life thread that would reshape the entire region when it comes to sports and not to mention economics. It's embarrassing. And it could have so easily been avoided. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You got thoughts? Go ahead. 301-230-0980. Let's get into more specifics of where we are, though. Eric Flack was in studio with Grant and Danny a little bit earlier. We got a couple of cuts from him, took some caller questions over on G&D. We have his answers over here on the Hoffman Show. And a reporter from the Washington Post who's been covering all of this will give us the absolute latest coming up at 4:30. Also still today, bad day for Monumental on the floor yesterday, too. Wizards have lost 16 straight. We'll get into it. Also, I think we do have Mock Draft 2.0 from Take Command a little bit later as well. We're stacked today on the Team 980. that's the scenario with this Potomac Yards deal. Last night, Virginia Legislature pulled it out of the budget that they're going to send to Glenn Youngkin's desk. So is it dead? We get to that now and then get even more insight from Teo Armas of the Washington Post coming up at the bottom of the hour. But Eric Flack was in studio earlier with Grant and Danny, our buddy from WUSA 9. And in his words, this is what he says happened yesterday.
The big headlines yesterday were the fact that, Louise Lucas, who's the senator from Hampton Roads, who was kind of blocking this entire deal from the jump, came out and said that she was not going to be making any sort of deals. There was still a belief that in the end, this really might be more about a toll, a penance, something like that, from the governor in response for her support or her allowing this plan to move through. Once she came out and said, we're going to reach a budget agreement and it is not going to be included in the budget, that was her saying once and for all, this is not going to happen in this budget process. And that's where the spiral of news headlines came from, as well as the flurry of activity.
So that's Flack on kind of what happened last night. And obviously Senator Lucas is the one kind of heading this, but there's a whole group of people that are negotiating this, and she's certainly not the only one. If she's the only voice in the room, I think it happens, but there's a lot of other folks that have other priorities and just don't think that this is what's best for Virginia. Now, I will say that the politics on this, I want to say the politics on this are complicated. The logistics of this, because this is not about, again, the horse race of who's up, who's down, what's popular, what's not. Like the horse race or the actual substance of this is complicated. You have a very, very diverse state in Virginia, right? You have an extremely urban area in Northern Virginia on the outskirts of D.C. You have extremely suburban areas elsewhere in Northern Virginia, your Restons, et cetera, that are purely like suburbs of Virginia. Then you have like kind of more your urban Alexandria, right? Obviously urban Richmond, the suburbs of those places. And then you have extremely rural places. You have urban Hampton Roads and the 757 area down there in Virginia Beach and the suburbs off of that. And so you have this extreme diversity in the state. And you also, because Virginia geographically is so big, like a lot of Virginia is a lot more like North Carolina. It's a lot cheaper. It's, the taxes are a little bit lower. More conservative areas obviously are going to have less stringent tax policies. More progressive areas, left-leaning areas are probably going to vote and be okay with a little bit higher taxes. Those also happen to be a lot of the wealthier areas, the urban centers, where there is more money, there's more tax revenue. And so, okay, well, now all of a sudden, if we're cool with more taxes, where's that money going? And some of that is local, and some of that is how, because of the wealth of the areas, state taxes that wind up saying, okay, well, yeah, this is a project that benefits Northern Virginia, not Southern, but like we pay most of the bills in Northern Virginia is what some of the Northern Virginia folks will tell you. So this isn't straightforward as in like, oh, why should Southern Virginia or Hampton Roads or wherever these either non-Northern Virginia urban and suburban or rural areas finance the TED Dome? It's more complicated than that. But there is the reality that like, hey, we are all putting into the same pot of money, and what is more important, a dome, stadium, a big practice facility, all this stuff that Ted wants to build, or making life a little bit easier on the tolls for people in Hampton Roads, or making sure that there's food assistance for people in Southern Virginia, and that feels like a pretty easy choice. But what Monumental would tell you is the revenue that's going to be generated in taxes and otherwise that will go to the state from this arena will actually help increase those. We'll pay more. And, now I would need an economist, and I would say most economists will tell you the Monumental side of the argument is full of crap, especially some prominent ones who are very opposed to stadiums. But that's kind of the baseline of what we should be debating here, instead of a lot of the political sideshow that I talked about in the first segment. All right, as for why this is no longer going to be in the budget, here's Eric Flack in studio with Grant and Danny a couple of hours ago.
Listen, there was a belief, and I had been told by people who were supportive of this deal, people on Monumental side, that always thought that, listen, we're going to be able to get something done eventually. This is politics. There's a negotiation to go on. I think what they didn't realize or maybe expect was that Louise Lucas, senator from Hampton Roads, was not going to be negotiated with. She dug in her heels and said, this is not going to happen. She blocked debate on it. And when it got to this final budget process, the budget is due to be approved on Saturday, which is kind of a political thing in Richmond. There was an opportunity for a small group of senators and House of Delegate representatives to come together and work out differences in the two versions of the budget. The House version, House of Delegates version, not only had the arena in it, it actually had strong, overwhelming bipartisan support in the House. It wasn't even close. In the Senate, we never really knew how much support it had, because this senator, who is the head of the Finance Committee, blocked all debate on the bill even being considered to be part of the budget. She had that much power. There was this, what happened politically this week is that there's a process through which these two sides come together. And presumably everybody who wanted this arena thought that maybe that people on the House side, the delegates, would convince Louise Lucas to put it in, to offer her toll relief, whatever it is that she wanted. And yesterday and today, again, she has come out once and for all and said no.
She said no. And that's kind of it. Now, there are other paths forward for this. They involve some stuff that Glenn Youngkin can do as governor. I do think there's another congressional path. Teo Armis, who covers this for the Washington Post, is going to join us, and we will talk about that with him next. And I do hope this stuff gets debated. I do hope that ultimately it gets to a point where this gets the attention it deserves, because one of the, in reading Teo and his colleagues' coverage in this in the Post last night, one of the things that I found interesting is my biggest thing that I shouted immediately was just like, why are you taking the basketball out of D.C.? Why are you taking these teams out of D.C.? If you want to do it with the Caps at this point, with how much of a foothold they have in Northern Virginia, and by the way, like, youth hockey in Northern Virginia is enormous. Like, does it suck for people in D.C.? Yes. Does it suck for people in Maryland who are Caps fans? Absolutely. But I understand that one more than D.C., like, taking basketball out of Chocolate City. Are you kidding me? And there's a lot of Virginia legislatures, or at least some allegedly, who are also don't agree with that. They just, like, morally don't agree with taking the game out of the city. And I understand that sometimes upsets people on in Virginia or in Maryland to be like, why is D.C. more important? Why does D.C. get everything? And I would just simply ask you this. What's the name of the team? The Washington Wizards. What region are we in? The Washington region, the greater Washington area. The city being at the center is why we're all here. Whether it happens to be the nation's capital, or whether it's the greater Raleigh, North Carolina area. Not quite as great in terms of size, but like, you do it in the city because it's centralized geographically, and there's also perks to being the reason that everybody's here. It's just the way it goes. And so what now? What next? Who can be convinced? What other methods are possible to keep this alive? And what problems need to be solved? Let's say that there is some debate, but what are we actually going to be debating at that point? Teo Armis, The Washington Post, joins us next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. You miss any part of the show, you check the podcast or our highlights on YouTube at Team 980 and at Craig Hoffman. Right now, we welcome in Teo Armas, who covers Northern Virginia locally for the Washington Post on this latest. I feel like I was in the headline writing business, Teo. We just go monumental disaster. That feels like it's low-hanging fruit here, yeah?
I mean, I'll let you write that headline. I don't know if we can make quite that pointed a statement, but, things are definitely looking grim for this arena plan in Richmond, especially after today.
It's not good. Maybe disaster's too strong. Well, so let me get your take on this is not really the right phrasing here. Let me get your where you think we are, your state of play here as someone who's reporting on this. Like what happened here to get us to this point? Why is it so surprising, and where does that leave us? And then we can jump off the where does that leave us and go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So, for this to happen, for the Caps and Wizards to move to Alexandria, the plan was always going to need approval and sign-off from the Virginia General Assembly. And they meet for 60 days. It's a pretty rushed 60 days between January and March. And there were always really going to be sort of three ways to get it through the General Assembly. There could have been a bill starting in the House, a bill starting in the Senate, or it could have been folded into the state budget. There's this one senator who listeners might be familiar with now based off of her social media feed, Louise Lucas, who runs the Finance Committee in the Senate. And basically, she stopped the Senate bill from taking off. The House passed a bill, then it has to cross over into the Senate. She stopped that from happening too. And as of today, it seems like she has stopped the arena from ending up in the state budget as well. So basically, she's blocked all three of those avenues. And there are a couple of weird things that Governor Youngkin can potentially try and do, but it seems unlikely that he will try and do those things.
So one of those things, from my understanding, Teo, is that he can basically now call like a committee on this of some kind or debate on this of some kind, and you can make me right here, hopefully, but that it's a standalone. Like a lot of times things get done when they get put in these gigantic budgets where there's a million things and there's handshake here, you give me this, I give you that. Okay, we both get what we want, even though we said we'd never give the other person the other thing, but now we can go back to our district and be like, see, look what we did. And thus things never get done in politics, especially at the federal and state levels, single-handedly, like as single issue type of votes and debates. That is kind of now where we're at, though, with Glenn Youngkin, right? Like if he's going to do this, it's going to have to be about the stadium and not included in some larger thing unless he waits a full year.
Most likely, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people definitely expected an arena, or maybe some people, I should say, expected an arena to come out of the budget deal because it was, the space for that bartering. This is basically something that's happening behind closed doors. It's a dozen lawmakers, and Democrats have a lot of things they want to get the okay from Youngkin on, whether that's a recreational market for marijuana or toll relief in the Hampton Roads area. That was kind of going to be where all the bartering is. And you're right there, right? That I think the avenues that are left are basically things that would require a little bit more of a standalone. And I mean, regardless of what those things are, he said at a press conference in Richmond today that, he's basically going to sort of stand down at this point. He's not really going to pursue any of the options that are left.
Why do you think that he's doing that? Like, was it the blowback? Was it, why do you think, and what did he say about why he went from having a press conference with Ted Leonsis to being like, yeah, I don't think I really want to fight for this?
I mean, it's a good question. The General Assembly session is not over. It ends on Saturday. So, I think we're going to kind of have to read the tea leaves here a little bit, but he could certainly be sort of playing a political move the same way that some Democrats could be playing a political move. And, tomorrow or the day after, they do a 180 and say, actually, we've changed our minds on this. At, the press conference he had, he basically indicated that he's going to be vetoing a whole bunch of, Democratic bills, Democratic priorities. And so maybe that threat is, what he needs to get the arena through. It's kind of hard to say, and we're going to have to be watching, pretty closely over the next 48 hours or so to, really see where this goes and see what, he ultimately ends up doing.
Teo Armas, Northern Virginia reporter for the Washington Post, with us talking about the Glen Dome, as it's been called, being shot down in Richmond in the General Assembly. So there was also a report, I think from I think it was from WAMU, that Leonsis had never met with Luis Lucas until yesterday. What role does Ted and Monumental play in the state of play right now?
Yeah, I mean, Ted and Monumental are kind of, I would say, one of the four big parties to the deal. And as such, I think they've been lobbying pretty hard in Richmond to try and get this through the General Assembly. But this is Youngkin's turf. This is Youngkin's court. And so I think Monumental, has kind of been working hand in hand with the governor's administration, to basically just convince state lawmakers, including, Senator Luis Lucas, that this is the right thing for Virginia, and the right thing for Alexandria and sort of the right thing for the state. Obviously, they have struggled to do that at this point. But I think a lot of the framing has been on Youngkin specifically because it's his venue, so to speak, right? The same way that I think if this ultimately does get to Alexandria, which is the next body that would need to vote on all this, I think the focus is going to shift away from someone like Youngkin and probably more so to the mayor of Alexandria. But we'll see if we even get to that point.
Right. It's not like if they can pull a Hail Mary here that they're actually now in the clear, because a lot of the local opposition. And, I think on the Monumental side, too, which is obviously very much in focus for our audience on a sports show. There's convincing legislatures, there's convincing mayors, convincing those, but there's also convincing the public. What have you made of Monumental's PR campaign? Because that has been, obviously there's been some things that they've pulled back. There's been some aggressive posting and email sending and all of these things to make sure that their message, quote unquote, is getting out. What have you made of that? And as someone who covers these kinds of things, have you ever seen something quite like it?
Yes and no. I think it's been really interesting because, there are political campaigns around these sorts of things all the time, right? There was an effort at one point to put a casino in Fairfax County, and I think you already sort of started to see some of the, energy from people who wanted it, from people who didn't want it. But I think what's really interesting on the Monumental side is they own a TV network, right? So they have been, running all these ads while folks are trying to watch Caps games or Wizards games, basically putting Ted or Zach Leonsis or other folks from Monumental front and center and saying, this is why this is a good deal. But Alexandria is a tricky place to do this in a lot of ways because I think the public there is so politically savvy and, so hyper engaged, and people really care about what happens in their backyard and they know politics. So it is, a thing that, maybe somewhere else it would have flown without quite as much criticism, but I think they're sort of really having to go toe to toe with a lot of neighborhood activists here.
Yeah, and it also feels like the kind of thing where if you're explaining, you're losing, and they have been doing endless explaining. Are you surprised at how, when Leonsis came out, I think it was with the interview with WUSA 9, where he's like, I'm surprised at the blowback. Are you surprised that they're surprised?
Oof. I don't think I'm surprised at the blowback, right? I write about Alexandria, that's my job, and, people there get so intense and passionate about, the color of the wall on a new development or something. But, a lot of this was kind of negotiated in secret, right? It was negotiated behind closed doors, and so to some degree, I guess it would have been impossible to know what, the reaction would have been like from the community, without going out and being public. But
what a concept, Teo.
But it's tricky, right? The way that this economic development stuff works in Virginia is really tricky, But on the other hand, right, like I said, Alexandria, these neighborhoods in particular, right, Old Town and Delray and Potomac Yard, They care about what happens in their backyard. Not that other people don't, but they care and they know how to get involved, and they will show up and make their voices heard.
I think that I think the people that you write about, Teo, would love the first segment of my show today, because that was kind of the message that if you care, you can get stuff done, and here we are, and this is what happens in a society where people don't care. Often is things get negotiated in secret, and now all of a sudden you run up against people who do care, and it's like, whoa, they care. Which leads us to let's say Virginia, and Teo Armas, Northern Virginia reporter for the Washington Post, is our guest here on the Hoffman Show. Let's say Youngkin does pull this out, that the threat of, hey, well, you're not going to give me this, you're not going to get any things that you want, I'm going to veto all of them, works. And Senator Lucas is like, you want to know what? I've talked to enough people. I actually don't think this is the worst thing, to at least let it get to a debate. Like, I'll let it get to this next step. And then it gets to Alexandria. What kind of roadblocks exist locally, from the politics to the logistics of what needs to happen to make this thing feasible?
Yeah, I think there are really two big questions here. The first of which is related to labor and labor unions. A lot of the Alexandria City Council is a lot smaller than the Virginia General Assembly. We're talking about 7 people instead of 140. So it's easier to convince those 7 people, but a lot of those 7 have said that if organized labor is not on board with the project, they're not going to be on board either. And as of right now, as of a couple of weeks ago, the hospitality unions and then the construction unions, have come out and basically said this deal is a bad deal for Virginia workers, for, the DC region's workers. And so I think having to sit back down with labor and hash something out that, works for all parties is definitely going to be a top priority as far as convincing, those lawmakers. I think the other big thing is there's an election happening in Alexandria. The mayor isn't running for re-election. Every seat on city council is up for election. And I think things, if it does get to that point, things are going to get really heated really quickly. Everyone has said that, they would expect a vote by the end of this year. So, while the current city council is still in place. But, from the very beginning, a lot of folks in Alexandria have been pushing for a referendum. And I think it would be very possible for that city council election to basically kind of turn into a sort of a de facto referendum of sorts on the arena project, just as, there's so many opinions on this and so many emotions around this as well.
That's actually a great place to end. So last question for you, Teo. I was reading the story last night that you guys had in the Post, and one line that caught my eye was that there are some Virginia legislators who basically think it's wrong to pull these teams out of D.C., that the blowback, not just locally in Alexandria, but the blowback from the region and specifically in the district, and how things went down here with Bowser, and it felt like very middle of the night, like secretive, and you're kind of pulling the city game out of the city. All of those things get into one giant bucket, but it leads to some concern for some Virginia legislators. How wide is that concern, and is that a type of thing that could be overcome if they just kind of think this is all wrong to begin with?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. It's not something we've heard from every single state lawmaker by any means, but I think it's definitely something we've heard from at least a handful. I mean, Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, it's not a different country, right? I mean, the DC region is really well integrated, and folks are crossing the river all the time and, working in DC and living in Northern Virginia or vice versa. And so I think, some lawmakers do ultimately feel a little bit responsible for what happens to the district, because their constituents are people who come into the district all the time. As to how widespread that is, Virginia's a big state. There's a lot of people who are in Richmond and are not from Northern Virginia, and I think that's where things start to get a little bit more complicated. But it's not something you can count out by any means.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I'm glad someone's responsible for the district, because we don't have anybody representing us, but that's a whole different radio show. Teo Armas with us here on the Hoffman Show. Teo, great insight as always. I'm sure, depending on what happens in the next 48 hours, maybe we'll talk to you very, very soon, but I'm sure as more developments come in, we'll have you back on the show.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. That's Teo Armas, everybody. Read his work and his colleagues in the Washington Post. They've had great coverage of this. Really recommend that. I also recommend, Eric Flack was on with Sheehan earlier today as well, so you can go back on the Rewind feature on the Team 980 on the Odyssey app and check out that interview. When we get back, let's take a couple of calls real quick. 301-230-0980. We wrap up the hour talking about this deal on life support for Monumental Sports in Virginia. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, I feel like that was the most range I got on anything in my voice in the last week.
Oh, you talking about the woohoo?
Yeah, I actually got like a little up, a little down.
Yeah.
I've just kind of been stuck here.
You sound good, man.
I'm like, is this what my voice sounds like? I forgot. Because it sounded like poopy since last Friday.
Yeah. You haven't coughed too much today.
No,
That's all right.
the mornings are still kind of rough.
Oh.
Light nights are still kind of rough, but generally sleeping all right. Middle of the day is not too bad, but damn, I don't know whether it was the pollen, whether it was the what. I don't know. Like the Indy 40-degree weather drop that we experienced last week. Did I tell you about that? Did we do that bit on the air in full?
The Indy weather?
Yeah, the Indy weather last week.
Nah.
By the way, nobody called. So if you're like, hey, what about the calls on the Monumental thing? I appreciate it. We got a bunch of YouTube comments. We got some great tweets. People loved the open to the show, being like, wow, maybe I should care about things more. Great. Love that. Civic engagement. Go do it. So thanks to everyone who tweeted at Craig Hoffman, who left is leaving comments on our YouTube stream at the Team 980. And we'll do more Wizards at the top of the hour and more of this Monumental story with David Aldridge. Seems like it's a good time to get the Hall of Famer on. They've lost 16 straight. Also, infamously, Anthony. Remember when we had David on early in the season or before the season, and I was like, they're not going to be like, there's no way they're not going to win 30 games. Come on. And David's like, nah, I'm pretty sure they're terrible.
Yeah.
That's why I'm me and he's him.
Yep.
I mean, I'm pretty good at breaking down the basketball, but
He has a good eye for these things.
damn, I missed on that one. 20. I didn't even think they'd be good. I definitely didn't think they'd be good. I just didn't think they'd be heinous.
Yeah, you thought they were going to be fun to watch. Maybe we get out to a couple of games. The Jordan Poole show was going to be coming to town.
If the Jordan Poole show had been the entire season, they wouldn't have won 9 games.
Well, if they had been bringing him off the bench all season, that's also a different.
Now, if only they could leave him or Tyus Jones there at the end of games. Perhaps we'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
No, but so last week I was really excited for Indianapolis. I can't believe that was really last week. That wasn't 3 weeks ago at this point.
Nope.
Dog. Whew. Time. Flat circle. Anyway, I was looking at the weather and I was super pumped because I was like, Indy's got this beautiful river walk. And I even was like looking at it as I was flying in. Like, I'm like, oh, there's the river. I'm going to run on that. Tuesday, I don't think I'm going to be able to get a workout in. Because I got in, I had to go do the show, fine. But I'm like, I'm going to get up on Wednesday and it'll be like 60 degrees. I'm going to go walk because I looked at the weather and it said the high for Tuesday and Wednesday last week in Indy was 65, 66 degrees. And then Thursday was going to be a little bit colder. Like it was only like a high of 44. The low was 20, like fine, whatever. Bruh. So Tuesday night, I'm getting ready for bed. And I'm like, oh, let me check. Because in my mind, I'm getting up in the morning. I'm going to go downstairs, have a little breakfast at the hotel, and then go for a run. Like, well, how long am I going to have to wait till it's warm? Ruh-roh. You know when the high was 66 in Indianapolis last Wednesday?
1 p.m.
No. 1 a.m.
1 a.m.?
Yeah, actually, it was probably like right at midnight.
That's actually hilarious.
We were already on the downslope as the cold front came in. By the time I woke up Wednesday morning in Indianapolis last week, it was 23 degrees.
That's it?
I did not go for a run. I cried. I did go for a run. I went on the treadmill. Sucked. I was thinking nice, warm run on the water. Instead, my ass was clumping on a treadmill. Dunk, 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 dunk.
It's not the life you deserve, man.
It was not. And this is what it gave me, was this voice. Ever since my vocal cords have been jacked. Don't like it. Not what we're doing. Not the plan. Whatever. All right. David Aldridge joins us next. We'll get his thoughts on the basketball team. We'll get his thoughts on what's going on in the Virginia State Assembly when it comes to the Wizards' potential new home, the Caps' potential new home. That's all next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we're streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Your home for Washington Wizards basketball, which has been a rough go of it as of late, and that is today's top story.
Today's top story, from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
David Aldridge has seen it all in his Hall of Fame career. Although, David, even you haven't seen that many 16-game losing streaks. This ties the record. Not good, David. That's my analysis. How are you?
I'm good, Craig. I'm good. And no, it's not good. Not a good week for the Wizards, Monumental, the whole thing. It's just more losing. And the bad part is that there seems to be, and this happens when you're having a really bad season. You have times when where you're making progress, and they're making progress in some areas, but the regression in the other areas is just so great that they can't get past it. They can't get around it. And so, yeah, it's bad, man. If they don't win, they play Charlotte tomorrow. If they don't win that game, boy, I tell you, I'm not sure when the next win's going to come.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like it was coming for a while last night, and then it didn't. But we're gonna get into all of it. I will tell the audience, David is doing some reporting today. Obviously, there's a lot going on, so if David has to hop off, we will gracefully allow him to go. But if all of a sudden David disappears, it's because he's doing his day job and he's doing us a great favor by joining us here for Not My Beat. So, David, we did jokingly do a segment earlier in the week, basically being like, is this the greatest 15-game losing streak ever? Because all of a sudden there are like some positive things. Jordan Poole playing a lot better. Denny's having a nice stretch here. There are some positives. But when you talk about those regressions, what are those things that are preventing those progressions from actually leading to winning basketball games?
Well, Craig, it starts with defense. It's just horrendous defensively. There's nothing that you can point to that says they're even moderately better defensively. I mean, the fact that they're a little bit more efficient offensively means that teams aren't able to kind of run up and down the floor willy-nilly. They do have to take the ball out of the basket a little bit more now. So teams are scoring a little bit less, but that doesn't mean that when the opponent has the ball that they are unencumbered in any way from getting to the basket. They just can do whatever they want. They get whatever shot they want. There's no resistance at the rim, certainly since Gafford was traded. It's just, it starts with that. I think Coulibaly is, understandably after his rookie season maybe wearing down a little bit, and having a lot of, top-notch defensive assignments every night is maybe starting to wear down a little bit. And you kind of expected that to happen. Doesn't mean he doesn't have a great future ahead of him. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, taking Poole out of the starting lineup hasn't done anything to improve their defense. Their defense is still horrendous. They're just a little bit better offensively now with the ball in his hands a little bit more. But that's, to me, the number one thing. And, as they kind of assess where they're going, they have to have kind of some really serious conversations about what it is that they want to do defensively. Because I think, they're trying different stuff, but the results are the results. I mean, they got cooked last night. They didn't get cooked last night by the right Wagner. You know what I mean? Like they got cooked by Mo Wagner last night. You know what I mean? Like how does that happen? If you're going to get cooked by a Wagner, it should be Franz Wagner, right? I mean, they got cooked by Mo Wagner in the fourth quarter. Come on, that can't happen.
No, and it's not even like besides that, how's the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Because when it comes to defense, like there's no anything. Like they have no good on-ball defenders, and they have no one behind them to help out. And at that point, like I don't know what you do besides wait for the season to end and get new dudes in there and hope that Coulibaly, one of your very few who was capable at one time this season of playing defense, obviously can hold up for an entire season. To me, though, like I want to circle around to Denny, who's offensively and rebounding wise having a really great month-ish here. But I do like, what do you make of him as a defender? Because if he's going to be, the third best player, let's say, on a really good team one day, it's going to be because he's a very solid offensive player and a really good defender. Are you starting to have concerns about his ability to do that long term?
I mean, I don't think he's like an awful defender. I don't think he's an especially good one. Like, the fact that they crow about it is kind of telling. Like, I'm not saying he's a sieve defensively. He's not. He tries to put his body in front of people. He tries to use his strength to kind of slow people down. But yeah, I mean, he's not. I don't look at him as a switchable kind of long length defender. If you look at, by contrast, what Orlando has and the guys that they can kind of just switch on everybody, possession after possession, they're just different and better. And it doesn't mean that Denny's a bad player. He doesn't have a place in the league. He's a good player, I think. But, is he – and I don't think he's a terrible defender. I'm not saying that. I think he's been solid much of the year. But I don't think there's like another level that he can get to defensively, which is what you need. You need guys that can compete for all defensive league, recognition to be a good team. And you need a lot of them, right? You need 2 or 3 of them. And I think the Wizards have one in Coulibaly. I think he's the one guy that right now you could say down the road, you could see him being a potential all defensively, all NBA defense type of player. I don't think Denny's that level of defender, but I don't think he's a bad defender. You shouldn't not play him because of his defense. His defense is fine. He rebounds, to your point. Like, defensively, he rebounds very well. And he's a very good ball handler. He's become a very good passer in this league. I think his best role would be as a secondary ball handler, with playing alongside a really good point guard who can handle the ball. And again, this is not a criticism, of Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones has played really well for them this year, but it isn't leading to winning. And it just isn't. Like, I'm not an anti-Tyus Jones guy, but the things that he does really well aren't helping them win games. And so you ask yourself, all right, then what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it doesn't mean he's a bad player. It's just that it doesn't fit here. I don't see the long-term fit here other than he's a really good guy. He does get them organized offensively, but it's just not there's just not enough there that you go, okay, I'm going to put some more money into him going forward. To me, that doesn't mean I'm right.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly the results would be pointing in your direction. And just to close the loop on Denny, like, Denny, I think, is their second best defender, probably, certainly of their main rotation players behind Bilal, and that's why they're the worst defensive team in the league, because, as you said, there's a different level there that needs to be had if you're going to be competitive. I do want to go to Tyus next, though. Ava Wallace of the Post, our good friend, asked last night Brian Keefe, of course, the interim Wizards coach, like, you're not starting Tyus and Jordan together. Why are you still finishing with them? Considering Jordan is running point in those situations and obviously has been playing much better as of late. What did you make of Keefe's answer that he's the guy that gets us organized? Is that a good enough answer at this point in this season on this losing streak?
I understand the answer because he does. Tyus Jones does a lot of really good things that should help you win basketball games. I'm not saying it is not his fault that they're not winning basketball games. Don't get me wrong. My point, which I wrote about last week when I wrote about Jordan Poole, was Jordan Poole's making $32 million a year. You have taken him out of the starting lineup so that you can get him the ball more, right?
Yeah.
You can't trade him. Nobody's going to trade for him this summer. Nobody. So he's going to be here next year. So if all of those things are true, why on earth is he not starting at point guard? I don't understand. We all agree he's best with the ball in his hands. The numbers seem to indicate when he's had this opportunity, he's been pretty good offensively. I mean, he is not good defensively. He's not ever going to be good defensively, I don't think, unless he really has kind of a reset mentally about what's important to him. But offensively, he's been pretty good, right, of late. And there's nothing wrong with that. I can live with a guy giving up a lot of points if he scores a lot of points. I can live with a push, right? I need to get a win at other positions, but I can live with a push at one, maybe two positions. Okay, then he should be starting. Like, I don't understand. Like clearly he's better offensively. He's more dynamic offensively in terms of what he can do scoring the ball. He turns it over more, but he scores more. So I don't understand this. Like, to me, I don't understand going forward. Like, if you're trying to build something, I think you have to kind of live with the pluses and the minuses of Jordan Poole, because he's not going anywhere. You can't get rid of him even if you wanted to, and I'm not saying they want to. But I'm saying if he's going to be here, then give him the ball.
Right. And the thing is, like, David, I don't even mind him coming off the bench so that you stagger he and Kuz a little bit minutes-wise. Kuz gets the ball first.
Right.
And then,
yeah.
but like,
you can do that.
at the end of the game, if you're kind of picking what you want to do to maximize the chances of winning, you have made the decision in part because Tyus and Jordan together is so untenable defensively that on the worst defensive team in the league, it's the worst thing that you have. And that's how we're closing games now. And it's like, yeah, no wonder they've lost 16 straight. And I guess my question would also be like, how much do they care that they've lost 16 straight?
Well, I think they care in the sense that they didn't expect it to be this bad. I mean, I
hope not.
They thought they would be garden variety bad, like 25 to 30 win bad this year, and have not saying that they wouldn't try to move up if they had the 8th pick again, right? Like they always have, it seems. The 8th or the 9th pick forever is the Wizards' MO, right? Maybe they would try to move up. But I think they thought, all right, we're going to be bad this year. We're going to be worse next year. I really do believe that they thought, okay, we're going to get through this year. We're going to start trading. We're going to really start to rebuild and start moving some of these vets for younger guys and play the young guys in 24, 25 and really take it on the snout, because there's there's at least one great piece in Cooper Flagg that might be available in 25, and potentially two, because the other kid just signed with Duke as well, who's really coming on, the young man who is coming out of the NBA Africa Academy and is really coming on. So I think they thought they would be bad. So yeah, losing 16 straight is not good. I don't care what the plan is, right? Like, it can be a long-term plan or whatever, but you can't. 16 straight's bad. Like, that's not. You can't just laugh that one off. I mean, guys have pride. They don't want to get boat raced every night. And it's even more frustrating because lately, I mean, they've been in these games, right? Because they have been more efficient offensively. So they've had chances. They were up 20 last night against Orlando. Now, you knew Orlando was going to come back, but it was a winnable game, and they didn't win it. Utah, winnable game. They didn't win it. Lakers, winnable game. They didn't win it. So there's been like 5 or 6 of these during the streak that they could have won that they didn't win. They didn't finish. So it's rough right now. I mean, it's not fun for them, and I understand that because it's the NBA, yes, but you still have guys, and they're not a good team, but there's still a lot of pride. Guys want to win. They don't want to be embarrassed nationally and be kind of a joke nationally, which is where they are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. David Aldridge, of course, the Hall of Famer, senior columnist of The Athletic, with us here on the Hoffman Show. One more on the basketball team, and then we can talk about the organization that runs them in this mess with Virginia.
Sure.
Have you lost, because ultimately this is what we're talking about here, the biggest of pictures is, have you lost any faith, or do you think that a losing streak like this does any lasting damage to the overall project here? Have you lost any faith in Winger and Dawkins, / do you think that these losses stacking up has done any kind of permanent damage to any of the people that could be here for the long term?
No, I haven't. I mean, they have to prove it. They haven't proven it yet, right? I mean, they haven't done anything to prove that this is right. I'm not saying that you blindly follow Winger and Dawkins and don't question what they're doing, but nothing that's happened this year, including the losing streak, makes me go that, oh boy, they should have kept Beal. No, this is what everybody in this town said they wanted, right? Everybody said, we're tired of mediocrity. We're tired of the hamster wheel. Take it down to the studs. Start over. Okay, you got it. This is it. This is starting over. And it's bad, and it's ugly, and it's painful. and there's no guarantee it's going to work. But you have the best opportunity. You have the best chance of it working, doing it this way, in my opinion, than trying to build a championship team around good but not great players. I don't know anybody who's ever done that. There's no frame of reference for me, and I've only covered the league since 1987. There's no frame of reference to me in that era of a team building a championship level team around pretty good players. Just doesn't, it's not there. Show me. Show me the map.
The closest would be like the 04 Pistons, which have how many Hall of Famers potentially on that team?
They got a couple of guys that go in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Starting with the coach,
right.
First and foremost. And that was even, look, I mean, that was a terrific team.
Yeah.
That was a team that was all in on defense,
right.
all the way in on defense.
They were like 7 deep of like really excellent players, and as opposed to the typical, yes, we have one Pantheon player and also 2 other excellent ones and then 4 other pretty darn good ones.
I mean, you could make the case that none of them individually is a Hall of Fame player, but that group had a lot of guys that were really close to being Hall of Fame players.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, you might say Billups in the Hall of Fame, but he's close. You might say Rip Hamilton's not a Hall of Famer. He's close.
Right.
So you had a higher level of pretty good players, and you had a lot of them. To your point, like you didn't have like 2.
Right. You got Olympic gold medalists. You got all-stars. When Rasheed Wallace wanted to be, he was like the 5th best
really
player in the league.
He's a really good player.
Only wanted to do.
Ben Wallace is a Hall of Famer, by the way. So.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. David Aldridge with us here on the Hoffman Show. So as the Wizards are busy blowing a 20-point lead last night, there's no delicate way to put that. That's what happened in the game, or watching it slip away. Their hopes of a stadium in Virginia also seem to be slipping away. What do you make of this news that the Glenn Dome and the TED Dome out there in Potomac Yards now seems to be on some level of life support?
Well, it certainly doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon in terms of this year, right? So, I mean, at some point, I don't know Virginia politics. I don't know state, how things happen in the state in terms of what the governor can and can't do. Apparently, he can basically make this a single issue that he can ask for an up or down vote, which seems more precarious than doing it the way he wanted to do it. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it doesn't happen this year. Obviously, they can try again next year. They can spend a year lobbying people, but I think Youngkin, I know he's term limited. He's got 2 years left. After this year, I'm not sure he's going to have a whole lot of juice left, because they're going to be thinking about the next governor, whoever that is, and what they want or don't want. So, I'm not saying it's dead. There's a lot of people involved that want this to happen. There's a lot of money involved, and that tends to make things happen in this society. But it's certainly not happening soon. So it gives Virginia a chance to kind of reset and maybe work on some of the people that didn't want it, and wouldn't vote for it. But it also gives the district, I think, another chance, potentially at least, to kind of get back in the game. So the question is, how do they do that? To me, it seems silly if he said, I want $600 million and you're offering him $500 million, why don't you just offer him $600 million? Like, you know what I mean? It's not my money. I mean, it is my money because I'm a tax-paying. I'm living in the district, so it is my money. So, but if you're going to do that, you might as well make the deal. You might as well say, hey, okay, we're going to give you the $600 million. Say no. And then if he says no, he didn't want to make a deal, right?
Yeah.
So that's what he wanted. He said, give me $600 million and I'll stay. Here you go. You got it.
Yeah, no,
and
that's definitely an interesting way to go about it.
I mean, if you're offering him 500, like if you're offering him 100, I could understand. But
right.
They offered him 500. There's a bill that the entire city council has passed to say, we will give you $500 million to stay. If you're going to give him 5, you might as well give him 6. Like, to me, I don't understand what the difference is at that point. I mean, if it guarantees him staying, why wouldn't you? I don't understand. If you've gone that far, you might as well go all the way to make sure. I don't think you should. this isn't a negotiation in that sense. You know what I mean? Like at this level, and especially since he's already left, like he's already said, I'm leaving. If you have an opportunity, however remote, to get him back, why wouldn't you do everything you could to get him back? You know, and if he says no to the $600 million, you have a clear conscience. Well, we offered everything we could. We offered him what he said he wanted, and he decided not to take it. I can't make a guy stay.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I definitely think that would be like, I don't know what Ted does at that point. I think at this point he could probably just be like, well, we already made the decision. It's not about the money, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then why were you asking for public money from the district in the first place if there was no chance?
You were willing to, less than 6 months ago, you were willing to stay for $600 million.
Right.
So, okay. Well, the deal in Virginia is not available to you right now. Now, you can wait, I guess, but you're running the risk of someone coming into office that may not want to spend that, may not want to make that deal with you for whatever reason. It's politics. People make deals and don't make deals for whatever reasons they have. You run the risk of having a legislature that may be less inclined to do the deal going forward. So I'm not saying it's dead. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if I want to make a deal, there's an option that's on the table, I think, that will soon be on the table again, that I think you have to at least look at.
Yeah, no, I think
We'll see.
Yeah, no, we will see. That is definitely the mode that we are in right now. David Aldridge writing about it all, the basketball and more at The Athletic. Of course, their senior columnist writing about DC sports and the NBA. David, always appreciate your time, sir. Thank you, and we will talk to you soon.
Absolutely, Craig. My pleasure. Thank you.
That is David Aldridge, the Hall of Famer, with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, Anthony and I do our best to do our best David Aldridge impression. We're going to talk some hoops. It is Thursday. It'll be 5:30, and we're going to give you our NBA Power Rankings, edition number 2 on the 2023-24 season next. It's the Hoffman Show on Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, where you get to see a dancing Anthony Haney. You're deep in your bag today, bro.
Hey, you know this song?
Yes, I know this song.
You are older than me as well.
I'm older than you, and I do think that my catalog of music is deeper than yours.
It might just be, Craig, but
Here's-
this is my jam.
here's-
You can ring my bell.
Here's the thing. Your boy, you forget. What was my job in high school?
God, you were a disc jockey.
That's right. I was a wedding DJ. You think I don't know 70s music? You think I don't know disco? You think I don't know 80s music that you'd hear at weddings?
I apologize for disrespecting you, Craig.
It's not really it's fine. I'm just saying. I got depth.
Yes.
When it comes to music that you'd hear at a wedding, in those genres, I am strong. I'm also I have more brain space spent on pop music between 2004 and 2014 than is useful. It's if we played Name That Tune with songs from that era,
Oh, you'd win.
I'd destroy you.
I'm not good at naming songs. Even modern day songs. I'm not
Modern
good
day,
with-
I'm terrible.
Oh.
Because
I'm just not good
here's the
with
thing.
names.
I listen to music most often when I'm in the car or when I'm running. And so I'm not looking at the title. For that stretch of time, I was super into the charts and looking at it. Then I got the DJ job with the company that I work for. So I had to know the names of the title and the artist. And then I was doing college radio and helping to program our Z89 up in Syracuse. And so these were requirements for me to know the title and such. Now I'm just oh yeah, I know that song. What's it called? Who sings it? Don't know anything. Big dum-dum.
I'm right there with you.
So there's that. All right, Anthony, it is time for our NBA Power Rankings.
Yes, sir.
We have not done these in a long time because we've been in many places that are not here together on a Thursday. Thursday is the day we do the Power Rankings. We did it during the NFL season. Now here we are in the middle of NBA season, and we have time to do them again. Last time we met our heroes, prime contenders were the Celtics and Bucks, Clippers and Nuggets. The puncher's chance were Sixers, Cavs, Knicks, Heat, Thunder, T-Wolves, Suns, Mavs, Lakers, Warriors. Interesting but not good enough. Pacers, Magic, Hawks, Nets, Kings, Jazz, Rockets, Pelicans. No chance in heck. Zardos, Pistons, Raptors, Hornets, Grizzlies, Blazers, Spurs. I actually don't know how much movement we're going to have, Anthony.
I think it's going to be a little bit of movement.
Well, we start with, did we ever decide if we're going to have a song for this underneath us?
I think we were supposed to work on that.
Someone suggested the Basketball by Curtis Blow instrumental.
Okay.
I don't think we have that handy.
2 seconds.
We could potentially acquire it. See what we can do. But here's what we got. Prime contenders in the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics are the best team in basketball. They are the only team in the NBA with a double-digit point differential in the positive direction. Your Washington Wizards and the team they play Friday, the Charlotte Hornets, both have a negative 10-point differential. But plus 11.2, that is championship caliber. for the Boston Celtics. Oh, look at you go, Ant.
Yes, sir.
Rapid response team over there. Celtics are 9-1 in their last 10. They're 48-13. That's 8 games better than the Bucks, who have the second best record in the conference. It's 6 games better than the T-Wolves, who have the best record in the West. You could make a legitimate argument, Anthony, based off of regular season statistics and where these teams are right now, that the Celtics belong in their own category. That is how far ahead they are of everyone else.
I just can't put them that far ahead
I wouldn't either.
of the defending champs.
To be clear,
That's it.
subjectively, I would not do that. Looking at the data, you could make the argument.
I understand the Celtics have the best record in basketball, but do you still believe they're the best team in basketball?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the other thing they have, they have some, like, there are some warning signs, right? They're not going to blow teams out in the playoffs once you get to the late rounds. It's just not how it works. And Jason Tatum has been not good in crunch time. Again, he was really bad last year. And he is, I saw a stat, I'm trying to remember the exact stat, but basically, like, I think on jump shots in the final, in clutch time, whatever, of players who have X amount. Basically, there's 25 players that qualified for this statistic, and he had the lowest shooting percentage on clutch shots. He's like 30-something% because he winds up settling for a lot of, like, step-back twos. He doesn't get to the rim. He doesn't take good threes. They get real stagnant, and he takes really tough contested shots. And he's a contested shot maker, but in that final 5 minutes of an NBA regular season game when the defense ratchets up, he is not scoring at an efficient clip. And that worries me because in clutch time, if you're in the finals against the Nuggets, they gonna score. Like Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, that pick and roll is so deadly. So they've got to find, I think, a clutch play that works for them. And whether that is a Derek White, I know this is going to sound crazy, but let me get through the sentence. A Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis pick and roll where either you get the shot you want or you kick it to Tatum on the weak side. And now he's attacking a not set defense on a second side of the floor. Or whether it's, just put the ball in Tatum's hands, don't overthink it, but Porzingis in pick and roll. You get some switches with Derek White as a screener and try to get him on some smaller players. Like Drew Holiday, same thing. Like there's a lot of options there that they've got to figure out. And I think that's why I still think they're the best team in basketball is they have depth at a level that no one else has depth. Yeah. Holiday, Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, White. And then the dudes they got after that.
You got Horford. You got Hauser.
Yeah, like they got dudes. And that's why I think they're the best team in the league.
Okay. I can respect it. The only reason I ask is because the defending champs, but they don't have the depth that they used to have. Like losing Bruce Brown, I think definitely hurt a little bit. And outside of that, like they don't really have much coming off the bench to like really like give them like too much support. I think the young kid Peyton Watson, he's trying to earn him some minutes. Christian Brown, I don't think he's having the second season that they projected him to have. So
no, definitely not. If he was, then they wouldn't be missing Bruce Brown as much. They were hoping that Christian Brown could kind of fill that spot.
Yeah,
and he has not really been able to do that. Bruce Brown just is such a intellectual know-how kind of player. Porter Jr.'s obviously continued to be up and down. He was great for them in the playoffs last year. KCP, how's he gonna step up or not? But yeah, Christian Brown's averaging, 6.8 points per game. Yeah. I think they anticipated him being like more of a 10, 12 point per game kind of guy, and that's pretty significant. So they gotta figure out some of their depth. And I think the thing that's scary for them, and Murray's missed some time this year, is like what happens if one of those two dudes is banged up in the playoffs? Yeah. That's why Boston's Boston, is because they can withstand someone getting banged up. Porzingis might be the guy they can least stand that with outside of Tatum. Yeah. But, and obviously holding your breath on a KP injury is something we're all too familiar with, but that's that. Boston is finally righted the ship. Or, sorry, not Boston. Milwaukee is finally righted the ship. They are 7-3 in their last 10 games. Started to get the defense together, which is kind of what Doc Rivers was brought in for. Obviously, the offense, if they've got those two dudes, if they've got Dame and they've got Giannis, they're gonna be good. And so I think that the way that they've played since that initial, where they lose, 5 of 7 or whatever it was, 7 of their first 10 with Doc as coach, basically.
Yeah.
I think they're absolutely still prime contenders, like Boston, Milwaukee series in the Eastern Conference Finals. Give me that.
Yeah. They're 6-1 since the All-Star break. They were 6-0. They played the Warriors yesterday and got humbled. But also, I just think
by the way, what a wacky week for them.
Man.
They get just. We tuned into that game against the Celtics at halftime
on Sunday.
And I was like,
Prime
oh,
time.
look, that game's on. That's right, because we were watching something else. And I was like, oh, this game is on. Oh, we were watching the Caitlin Clark break the record Iowa game.
Yeah.
And we flip over because that game's over. And it's like, okay, let's watch the Warriors and Celtics. Awesome. It's what? It was like 81-38 at halftime?
Yeah, they were down 44. They were down 44 at halftime. And then yesterday they were up like 20-something at halftime. But
anyway, the Bucks.
Yeah, the Bucks. I just feel like they're slowly but surely like figuring things out. Giannis's Achilles or like his ankle, whatever it is, that's definitely something to monitor. But when Dame was out there by himself and Giannis had to miss the game the other night, that's the Dame that the Bucks need to see throughout the rest of the season and the playoffs. That's when Dame is aggressive, when he's confident, and when he can just play his game. I think that's when he's at his best, and that's when the Bucks will be at their best. And they're going to need him because, again, they also are lacking some depth and at some key positions.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So then the other team that we added a prime contender was the Nuggets, which we already talked about, which they're still in there, and the Clippers. Obviously, the Russell Westbrook injury hurts, but as long as they have the other three, I think they still very much belong. They've continued to roll along, playing just fine. Is there anybody else that you think needs to be bumped up into prime contenders?
I like where the Heat are. I like where the Heat are. I'm still hesitant on the Warriors. Like they're looking good outside of that Celtics game. They're going to be scary in the West, but I'm cool with these four right now. Maybe a week or two, we might, have to move a couple of teams.
I think I am too. So that leaves the list of who's next, who's really pushing up, who should we star as potential future prime contenders, and is anybody dropped out of Puncher's Chance down into the, they ain't good enough. We continue our NBA Power Rankings next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app. right, continuing on our NBA Power Rankings journey. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Let's get into, and we'll get more into the Wizards and their yikes-a-roni at the top of, or actually in the next hour. But we'll get into the puncher's chance category now. We agree Celtics, Bucks, Clippers, Nuggets remain unchanged in our prime contenders category. Anthony, puncher's chance, Sixers, Cavs, Knicks, Heat in the Eastern Conference. I tend to think that is, those are the correct teams. I don't know that I'm ready to put anyone else up. But I will say, standings-wise, the team that we saw last night come back and beat the Wizards, the Orlando Magic are 4th in the East right now.
Yeah, they're rolling right now.
They're 8-2 in their last 10. By the way, so were the Miami Heat.
Yeah, they're rolling. I mean, they're young. I think that's why we're probably a little reluctant to move them up. But if they continue at this trajectory, then, I mean, we're going to have no other choice.
I mean, do we, though? Because this is where you look at some of the underlying data, right? And I think point differential has typically been a pretty good indicator in the NBA. And they're winning by an average of 1.8 points per game. So they're like not super elite offensively, not super elite defensively. They're just pretty good defensively. Like they're one of the better defensive teams in the league. Like to hold teams under 110 is hard in the modern NBA. The Celtics are doing it. The Cavs are doing it. The Knicks are doing it. The Heat are doing it. That's it for the Eastern Conference. Like the 5 of the top 6 teams are holding teams under 110. The other one's the Bucks, who are disastrous defensively, but so good offensively it doesn't matter. But offensively, like the Magic are a plus 1.8. To me, that's not saying like, oh, this is actually some sleeper team. It's like, no, they're good. They're beating up on the Eastern Conference a lot. And I just don't. Nobody on that team has playoff experience outside of Joe Ingles. So it's hard for me to put them in like legitimate puncher's chance. They're definitely interesting, but they are literally interesting, but not good enough.
Is the only team? I mean, would you say the Thunder? And the only difference between the Thunder and the Magic being that the Thunder have an MVP candidate on their team?
Well, that's a pretty big difference. Like,
I'm just making sure.
And it's not just one. Like, okay, let's do a draft real quick. Thunder and Magic players are on the board. You get first pick. Who you taking?
I'm taking Shea.
Okay, I'll get the second pick. I'll take Chet.
Okay, and then I'm going Paolo.
Okay, but the best 2 players in that.
But then you go Franz next.
Sure, but like, how long Jalen Williams is after that?
Yeah, probably.
So like, and the fact that Shea is like no doubt the number 1 pick.
Yeah, easily.
And I don't know if Chet and Paolo's kind of close, but like Chet's kind of a rookie and Paolo's not.
Yeah.
I think that tells you a lot. And like also one team is 37-26, the other is 43-19.
Yeah.
And averaging 121 points per game.
I was just curious,
And they've also got a little bit of experience. Messed around last year.
Yeah.
So I think the Magic are set up very well for the future. If Paolo continues to grow, like they're legit contenders in the next couple of years if they can add the right pieces. But I think they're a little bit ahead of schedule right now, being 4th in the East, in part because the rest of the East is just not that good. The problem with the rest of these teams in the Eastern Conference is so many of them are injury dependent, right? The Knicks, what's up with Brunson? Sixers, obviously, they're just kind of sitting there waiting for Joel Embiid to get back. Like, that's the problem. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, it's kind of a different story. Every team is like, can they actually hold it / put it together? The Thunder, young. T-Wolves now young and hurt with Cat and this meniscus injury that's fresh last night. The Suns, the Mavs, the Lakers, and the Warriors, those are currently the 4 teams, unless it changed last night. No, it did. The Suns are now a half game ahead of the Kings. But 2 nights ago, those were the 4 teams in the play-in. And we think they could legitimately win.
I mean, do you want to keep the Timberwolves there?
I think they're still the 1 seed in the conference. They kind of have to be. They're tied with OKC, by the way. But they kind of have to be there for right now. They have a puncher's chance. I mean, defensively, they are so good. They're so far and away the best team in the league. They're giving up 106.5 per game. The next best team is, they're the only team in the Western Conference giving up less than 110 per.
Yeah.
The next best team is the Cavs at 109.5. They're literally giving up 3 less points per game.
Yeah, but that also happens when you have two Twin Towers down there, Carl Anthony, Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
And now I guess they did pay Naj Reid, though, so.
They did, but do we know when Cat's coming back?
I don't know. The meniscus, he could be, I don't know. I don't want
Meniscus
to
could be 6 months. It could be 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So if he's out, they're out.
Yeah.
Although Anthony Edwards still, star.
Yep. Had to put the team on his back then. We'll see. I'm cool with leaving them there, though.
I think they have to stay in puncher's chance for right now. And then the question becomes, on the opposite end of the defensive spectrum, do the Dallas Mavericks deserve to be here?
I'd rather have the Dallas Mavericks there than the Los Angeles Lakers, just saying.
Really?
And I say that because LeBron James, he limped out of the game yesterday.
He did.
Ankle is messed up, is bothering him. And the Lakers can't defend. They can't guard to save their life.
No, they're almost as bad as Dallas.
Well, and I think Dallas is better from an offensive standpoint if LeBron James isn't going to be available.
So are you, Lakers fan, LeBron fan, Anthony Haney, ready to demote the Los Angeles Lakers into interesting but not quite good enough?
Yeah, no. Not just yet. I need to see if LeBron's going to be playing. I know he's probably not going to play back-to-backs, but if he's going to be able to play, every other game, he's going to be able to, treat his ankle, and he'll be able to play like that. All right, I'm cool with leaving him there.
I just think if he can get healthy by the playoffs and they get in, they still are them.
Yeah, but he's dealing with some tendonitis in the ankle.
I know. You got this year and next year, bro.
I'm going to leave him.
Okay. I'm okay with that. Here's my question. This is actually where I think we might get movement.
Ooh!
Interesting, but not quite good enough. Do the New Orleans Pelicans belong in puncher's chance?
Hell yeah.
I think I agree with that.
That was aggressive.
Then the team that I saw beat them in Indianapolis. Do the Pacers belong up with Tyrese Halliburton?
I'm just not all the way sold on those guys. I think they're going to be able to put up numbers. I just don't.
Here would be my argument. Tyrese missed some time.
Yes.
What's their record, and where are they in the East if he doesn't miss that time?
They're probably a 3 seed.
And at that point, are they in puncher's chance?
Just because they can score with the best of them. Yeah. We got the Sixers up there still. The Knicks, I guess so.
If we look up in the Pacers, who made the finals of the in-season tournament, are suddenly in the Eastern Conference Finals, they would have had to beat the Bucks or the Celtics, which is highly unlikely.
Or they could have avoided.
But I don't think them in the Eastern Conference Finals they would have had. But I don't think they're that much different than any of these other teams. They play super different stylistically.
Yeah.
But I think that's there. All right. I think that's kind of where we land. Unless we want to move the Jazz down into no chance.
Yeah.
I don't even think they're that interesting.
Yeah. Move those guys.
See ya. All right. That's our list. Interesting, but not quite good enough. Magic, Hawks, Nets, Kings, Rockets, no chance. Wizards, Pistons, Raptors, Hornets, Grizzlies, Blazers, Spurs, and welcome to the Utah Jazz. We'll do this again next week. We'll have some more injury clarity. Hopefully not any more new injuries, but that's the way things go. Up next, Logan Paulson and I did our second mock draft of draft season. You'll hear the reveal. This isn't even out yet. Just for you here on the radio. Who did we take with the second overall pick? Did we take someone with the second overall pick for the Commanders? That is next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, where you can now listen to and watch full episodes of the Take Command podcast. That's right, Logan and I have a new YouTube visual home, and this is a good one to watch on YouTube for sure. Mock Draft 2.0. We spent a little time talking about Zach Ertz signing, and then we got into our mock draft. 3-round mock we picked just for the Commanders, starting with the second overall pick, and a sneak preview of that out tomorrow morning in your podcast feeds here for you on the Hoffman Show right now. It is time for Take Command Mock Draft 2.0. Logan Paulson. Again, if you are listening on the podcast app of your choice, full episode of this is on YouTube, and you can see the War Room. We got it pulled up here on YouTube at the Team 980. And we have gone ahead and we're going to use Pro Football Network's mock draft simulator for this one, just to get a little bit of a different feel. Typically, we've used PFF, but we're going to go Pro Football Network for this one. We got Caleb Williams already on the board for Chicago, and that puts Washington on the clock at 2, Logan. And we've been talking about Drake May versus Jaden Daniels a lot. In our first mock draft, we selected Jaden Daniels, but as we watch more tape, we've gone to the combine. I tend to think that we're probably going to wind up taking the quarterback from North Carolina, but talk us through where you're at as you're our lead GM, lead decision maker here.
Yeah, so I think for me, obviously, Drake May is a guy that I was not very high on when we started the process. A guy that was just so dynamic, obviously the best player in college football. So his ability to extend plays, to create off schedule, to run, to hit one of the most beautiful deep balls you'll see in the draft class, I think is very intoxicating. But I think when you look at Drake May, there's just a consistency and a transferability, if that's even a word, to the NFL game that Jaden doesn't have. And look at his big-time throw ratio, big-time throws to sack ratio, pressure to sack ratio, throws over the middle of the field, big-time throws over the middle of the field. All of those numbers favor Drake May pretty dramatically. And again, I'm not saying that I understand that they're different football players, and Jaden Daniels, finds explosive plays outside of just throwing the football. He runs, and that's another way he beats blitzes and does that kind of stuff. But I just think the way that you can obviously see Drake May looking at the field, the way he handles protections, it seems like an easier jump to say he projects better to the NFL level. And this is not to me say that I still don't like Jaden Daniels. I still like him quite a bit, but I just think Drake May is I don't say safer, but it just seems like a more NFL ready product. And I think his talent is tremendous. I think the way he throws the football is very dramatic. I've talked about how I don't think his arm strength is quite Justin Herbert-esque, but I think it's still pretty gosh darn good. So I think all of those things just kind of continue to stack up in his favor. And so I think that's the pick at 2, quite honestly.
Yeah, so the thing that I think still gets me when I watch Jaden and Drake that emotionally pulls me towards Jaden, and I have to pull myself out of, is it just feels so rhythmic. And I feel like he has a great feel for the pocket, and he just the ball gets where it's supposed to be, generally speaking, on time. And then you have to kind of think about, okay, well, what are the circumstances that you're playing in? And this is why you watch the All-22 and not just the game tape where it's oh, well, that was easy. Yeah, he's got a good offensive line, talking about Jaden Daniels, a good offensive line in front of him. He's got, Brian Thomas Jr., who was 209 pounds and ran a 4.36, I think, at the combine.
It looked really good, yeah.
On one side, and facing typically a team's second best corner, because he's got Malik Neighbors, who's probably going to go in the top 6 picks on the other side.
Right.
And it's really easy to be on time and on target when your first read is almost always open. And so I think that, and then you watch an All-22 of, Drake's last college game versus NC State, and it's a mess for everybody that's not named him. He's dropping passes, the offensive line's losing quickly. He throws 2 picks in the game that hit receivers in the hands. And, I think you look at all that stuff and you just go, okay, well, this is then that's really pretty, game TV copy that you kind of start the process with. And so through it, that's why I find myself leaning towards Drake with this pick. And I agree with you. I do struggle sometimes with, the mechanics and the footwork and stuff with May, but I also understand the circumstances that he's playing in, also the pressure he was under because their defense wasn't very good And I think Caleb obviously has that to an extreme as well. When we're talking about what Chicago's considering. But that is like my one big thing where I fall back to Jaden Daniels, and I'm like, man, but the rhythm and the timing sometimes when it's good, man, it looks so good. And I feel like there are fewer stretches of that with Drake on tape. But also you understand why, because that is very circumstantial versus the stuff that you're talking about that you fight through that adversity, make these throws, and that's the stuff that you're gonna have to do in the NFL.
Again, like I like Jane Daniels a lot, but I do think the thing is like it's the complexity of the offense isn't there the same way, right? And it's not like North Carolina is this crazy, complicated, nuanced offense, but there is this kind of like simplicity to what he does, and again, he's on rhythm. And then the other thing that kind of gets me is like there were opportunities in college football with Jane Daniels where there are what I would consider NFL open throws that he's turning down, he's running. And I don't want to knock him for throwing to good receivers, and I don't want to knock him for speaking to his skill set. Like I've seen guys that have that ability turn down NFL open stuff and never develop as a passer, right? And like Lamar is, I think, a good example of a guy who's developed in that way and people get excited about, but he's an exception. He's not the rule. And so that's something I keep going back to is like, do I think he can develop? And I just want to point this out too, and I point this out on every single show. Every time we talk about these quarterbacks, it's a projection business, right? It's a projection business. So what is the most likely outcome for these two athletes at the NFL level? And right now, I do think Drake May feels a little bit less risky from a what you've seen on film, but I thought was fascinating because they're like, don't let the production trick you, right? It's the traits, it's the guy, it's the interview. And to me, I think the most important element is where they're going. Like I'm pretty confident to say whatever one of these three guys ends up in New England is not going to have a good year. Like I'm very confident in saying that. And maybe they have a terrible career because they get cooked too early or whatever. But what has Washington done to support either Drake May or Jaden Daniels? And that becomes the major question for me moving forward is this team good enough to sustain, to foster growth at a young quarterback? And I don't know. That's why Adam Peters is making all that money. But I will say that when you watch Drake May, the types of throws you're seeing are more NFL translatable. Like I've said this before, go watch a Drake May highlight. Just go type in Drake May highlights, North Carolina 2023. You'll see throws over the middle of the field. You'll see fades. You'll see comebacks. You'll see timing throws. You'll see off-schedule stuff. With Jaden Daniels, you see explosive runs and you see box fades. Some of the most beautiful box fades you've ever seen thrown in your whole life, but that is not viable consistently at the NFL level. And can he do more? Potentially, but I just see more transferable stuff from Drake May. And he's a good athlete. He's a good leader. Interviews went well. That was kind of the scuttlebutt coming out of the combine. So I'm going to lean that way for this pick.
Oh, but there's one more thing we have to consider, Logan.
Oh, what is that, Craig?
Do you hear that noise? Do you hear that?
No, what is
that?
that?
Fainting. Ring, ring. Yes, it's the trade phone going off. Now, Pro Football Network's mock draft simulator actually does often offer you trades, but I'm going to play opposing GMs calling in here for a second, Logan Paulson Peters, and I'm gonna make you some offers here. Hello, it's Tom Telesco here from the Las Vegas Raiders, and I have a trade offer for you. This was offered to me. Actually, I got this idea from the Hoffman Show. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a radio show there in DC. And one of our guys here in Vegas, Q Myers, was a guest on it. And I actually liked their trade proposition. So I got 13 for you in this draft. First rounder next year. I got my second rounder this year and next year. And also Hunter Renfrow. I know you need a slot receiver. Can I interest you in that package for the second pick?
I would be interested, but they're picking at 14, right?
13.
That seems a little bit too low for me to go because I'm not going to get a quarterback that I want, or the quarterback that I want. And I might not even get the fourth quarterback at that spot. So you would need to probably add another third rounder for me and maybe another pick this year. Drop Hunter Renfrow. I don't care about him. Let's get some draft capital so we can make big moves moving forward. That's kind of how I feel about it.
All right. Thanks for considering Adam Logan Paulson Peters.
Yes. Right.
And I hope you good luck with whatever you do. There's another AFC Wester on the phone. Ring. Denver Broncos calling. Hey, it's Sean Payton here. That North Carolina quarterback. He's all I've dreamed about at night for 3 months. I'd really like him. I'll give you 3 firsts and then we can talk about what else we got. But I'm gonna offer you 3 firsts here as the meat of this trade. Would you consider?
I would definitely that is something I definitely would consider. 3 firsts, maybe a couple seconds, maybe an extra pick this year. And again, where are they? They're picking 12?
It's 12. I rounder that I can offer you this year. Sorry about that. But I'll offer you 12. If you want 81, we can talk about that. But then I'll give you my first and second next year. And we'll do 12 and 81, first and second this year, and then first and third in 26.
That's something I would definitely kick the tires on. I don't know how you feel about that, Craig. I mean, you're also, you're in the war room with me. We're talking through this. That seems like a pretty steep bag for me. And I still have the opportunity to trade back up and maybe get the 4th quarterback or even Jaden Daniels if he were to slide a little bit. So that's something I definitely would kick the tires on. I
would also kick the tires on that, in part because, like you said, potentially trade back up. And I love Drake May.
Right.
If I love Drake May like Nate Tice loves Drake May, there's not a package basically that you can give me, because Nate thinks he's one of the best prospects of the last 10 years. And there's not a price for that. But that said, I also look at Denver and I'm like, I don't think you're going to be that good if Drake May is your starter this year. Right. And that's kind of, you're looking at either a Jared Stidham holdover or a Drake May this year. They just had to cut Justin Simmons. Like, their cap's a mess. Sean Payton's a really good coach and got them playing good ball by the end of last year, but I don't know how good that football team's going to be. So I'm looking at that in the way that Chicago looked at Carolina last year potentially. So I would kick the tires on that. But I think for the purposes of Mock Draft 2.0, we say, hey, Sean, you're a crazy man. Thank you. Click.
Yep.
And we just go, let's take Drake May, quarterback out of North Carolina, and call it a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. There we go. All right, that was Mock Draft 1.0. That's what we did in the first round. I will tell you there was a trade for our second round picks. Well, one of them. What did we do? Who did we wind up taking? How did the draft fall? For that, you will have to listen to or watch Take Command, which you can do on the Team 980's YouTube page or your favorite podcast app. When we get back to the basketball court, Anthony, I think it's time. I think it's time that we talk about the Washington Wizards and their 16-game losing streak. Have we lost faith in the new administration already? 301-230-0980. We take your calls on the Team 980 listener line, 301-230-0980 next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on the YouTubes at the Team 980 as well. And man, the Washington Wizards, it has not been a good couple of weeks on or off the court. The deal is falling apart in Virginia. We talked about that off the top of the show. And now we talk about the on the floor, Anthony. And I got news for everybody. It's not any better. They have now tied a franchise record, 16 straight losses. I don't know how much you watched, Anthony, but I was working on some stuff last night. Wizards had a nice 20-point lead, took a step away from the TV, what it felt like, just a step. And next thing you know, the Magic are right back in it. What are we doing, bro?
I was telling my friend about the Wizards, and he said this is no longer my team. He's too embarrassed to watch the Wizards because, again, like you said, we were up 21. There's no reason for us to have lost that game. And it's sort of kind of like what happened 2 nights ago, I guess. Well, from an offensive standpoint, like we had an amazing offensive first half, and then in the second half, the Wolves just fell off. Like offensively couldn't do anything, defensively couldn't get a stop. And, yeah, I don't know. I think we just got to be able to put together a full 48 minutes together, because that first half, man, they had me. They had me thinking we
had
were
him in
going to
the first
snap
half.
this streak. We had him in the first half.
And then it all went terribly wrong now, didn't it? I mean, the Wizards, David Aldridge joined us at 5 o'clock. If you missed that, I mean, obviously always worth listening to the Hall of Famer, but, like, he nailed it. You don't need to be in the Hall of Fame as a writer and an analyst to nail this. Like, the Wizards are so bad defensively. It's a joke. And, some of it is just the personnel is this despicably bad. And this is where, like, I get kind of, I don't know how hard I want to go here. I get irritated, I'll put it that way, by Wizards fans who hype up Denny Avdia as, like, some superstar in the making. Just because he's the best defender on your team or one of the best defenders on your team doesn't mean he's actually good. Like, he's fine defensively. And, he gets a lot of tough defensive assignments. And that's why the Wizards are bad. The Wizards are bad because Denny Avdia, this isn't Denny's fault. It's not Denny Avdia's fault that he's Denny Avdia. It's the Wizards' fault that they don't have anyone better. And I don't know how much they really care right now because wins and losses are somewhat irrelevant at this point in a rebuild. And I'm sure some people might be like, well, you can't build this bad of habits. Like, there's only so bad you can be. There'll be long-term consequences. And I would tell you to go look at the Philadelphia 76ers, who were abysmally bad. And you don't know how much it mattered once they got Joel Embiid rolling? Zippy. Not a damn bit. Because there's so few players that are here right now that are going to be here when they're good. It's like Bilal, Corey, maybe. Poole, maybe. And that's it. And if Poole can keep playing like this, maybe by the trade deadline next year, someone will take a flyer on him as a sixth man that's a competitor and give you a first-round pick for him. He's averaging 22, 24 a game. Sweet. So I think that this is like, but it is like frustrating to just not feel like you have any answers. I will say the person who's probably getting hurt here is Brian Keefe. You can't make a real great case to be the interim coach or go from interim coach to full coach if you just lose all the time and you can't figure out some kind of way to play a modicum of defense. And then from a lineup standpoint, I thought Ava Wallace, I commend Ava. Because last night, we have this clip. Do you ever question in it too, Anthony?
Yeah. Question
okay.
in there.
This is Ava last night asking what is absolutely not a dumb question. Oh, sorry, that's miscommunication. No fines. No fines. You have it in the folder. I thought you had it. What do you have it in front of you? Because I don't see it in the folder. That could be a fine on you. Oh, Keefe on Tyus and Poole playing together? That one?
Yes.
Okay. Here's Ava asking not a dumb question.
Jordan, in overtime, if Jordan is running point, why have Tyus out there with him instead of Corey?
Tyus is the guy who organizes. Tyus is the one who gets us into the sets we want. We trust all of our players, but Tyus is our organizer, our team. We always feel comfortable getting us in the sets we want. Corey played a great game. It's nothing against one or the other. But he's the guy who settles us down, makes sure we're organized. He's been doing that for us all year, so we trust him to do that.
And you've won 9 games, and I love Tyus Jones. I think on a good team with very different personnel than the Wizards, Tyus Jones is the kind of piece that helps you like low-key win a championship. You put Tyus Jones on, God, I'm trying to think. Like, you put Tyus Jones on the Wolves, who definitely were interested in him at the deadline. He's the kind of organizing piece that makes sure that Cat and Anthony Edwards are getting their shots and can get you pick and roll buckets with Rudy Gobert. Like, there's a lot of good stuff that Tyus Jones does that works really well there. Here, he's a small guard who's going to get picked on in crunch time, and you already have one of those on the floor, meaning it's harder to hide the both of them. And so whether it's Corey Kispert, who's got more positional size and is a better defender and more shooting, or Johnny Davis even, who's like plus minus has actually been good the last couple of weeks, even though he doesn't, or a couple of games, even though he hasn't really done a lot offensively. Like he's playing some defense. Get him out there for the size. Like he's been playing well with Jordan Poole. I know winning doesn't really matter, but like it'd be cool if they tried. And it just doesn't feel like they're doing the things that they need to do to try. And whether it's Tyus managing his whatever desires or Jordan and his, like, they've lost 16 straight. At this point, nobody gets to say anything. Do the right thing. And it's very frustrating to watch. So this is my question for everyone on the phones at 301-230-0980. Is have you lost any faith in the overall process seeing this 16-game losing streak? Let's go to Aries Tony. Tony, what's up? You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig, how you doing? Yes, I have lost all faith because this is pathetic. I mean, really, I thought we was going to be a little more better than that with Jordan Poole and Kuzma and everything. I know this is supposed to be a rebuild and reset and everything else, but golly, 9 games, we're not better than that. You know, from this point on, for real, I'll just evaluate the younger players. Bilal belongs in the G League for right now. I don't think he should be out there right now. I think he need to put him in the G League, let him develop there. If he shows some improvement, then bring him back. But, you know, showcase some of the other players and everything. And you was correct about Denny Alvia. He's not that player. Remember, he scored 43 points. Everybody got hyped and said, "Oh Lord, he's coming out. He's finally going to be the player that we thought he was." Now look at him. Now he went back to his shell. So it's totally pathetic and everything. You know what, Craig? For next year, everybody's on the trade block. Everybody. I just thought because it's not worth it. I mean, this is totally pathetic. Even Charlotte looks better than them since they made the trade.
Yeah,
they made their trades.
Yeah, I mean, it is pathetic. Tony, thanks for the call. Do I disagree with or agree with everything Tony said? No, Bilal doesn't need to go to the G League. I think he looks tired. I think Bilal could use a week off. He's hitting the rookie wall, and he's hit it hard. And unfortunately for him, he's the best defender they have. So, like, he's kind of got to go out there and chutzpah up and get it out there in front of a Giannis, get out there in front of a Paolo Banchero. Like, and he's learning on the job. And this is the luxury they have that they don't care about this season, that they can do that. But also, like, it's a lot on that kid, man. It's really hard. And, you know, Denny's a good player, but he's not some superstar in the waiting. Like, when he's your second best defender, you're bad. And the responsibility that he's being asked, like, that's the problem is, like, these guys aren't bad basketball players. They're heinously overstretched at the moment. Some of these guys are good players. But every single guy is being asked to do more than he should do on a winning team because they don't have the top-end talent, which you were hoping that Poole could be that guy maybe. You were wondering if Kuz would take another step, but, like, Kuz is in his late 20s. I like Kuz a lot. If I was a winning team, I'd want Kyle Kuzma. I cannot believe someone did not give up more than what Dallas was willing to at the deadline. I can't believe there weren't more offers for him. He's the exact kind of guy that belongs on multiple teams right now that are trying to win. But he likes it here. And so, you know, there wasn't like a crazy offer and he chose to stay, which I don't, see what options exist in the summer. Let's go to Big Tony. Big Tony, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
What's going on, fellas? Hey, Craig, look here. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but you got to check out NBA TV, the thing on the Iceman, George Gervin, the thing on the Rain Man with Sean Kemp and Gary Payton, and the thing on with the Mailman. They run them back to back to back. If you ain't seen it, look it up on NBA TV. It's the must. You can't miss that.
Okay.
Trust me. But look here. I'm a Spurs fan, so I was used to winning championships, and then we started after Kawhi left. We started losing, and now we hanging out with y'all in Detroit and all them. Dude, I feel your pain. I was watching the game last night. I was like, oh, they have 20. I'm gonna go watch the other game. I come back. It's 15, 12, 9, 5, 3. The Diamonds is up. I'm like, oh snap, dude. Like you said, I don't know how somebody ain't take Kuzma and Poole. Just let him keep doing what he got to do. And like Eric Tony said, my man, Trey, everybody's on the block. I mean, I don't even know if this is a rebuild, Slim. You just got to just put a match in it, man. Call the insurance people and say somebody burnt the joint down. You don't know who did it, but somebody did it, man. Blow the whole. And like you said, the coach, he getting a bum shake, man, because dude, they ain't got no. I mean, they play defense like Linnell was trying to cover Anthony that day. I mean, damn, dude.
Now that's how we know you're a big fan of the show, Tony. We're up against the clock, but I appreciate you calling in.
Take it easy, babe.
And lucky you're a Spurs fan. You have Wemby, so it's not exactly the same pain. Also, you've got 5 championships in the last 25 years. The Wizards haven't won 50 games since 1979. But there is something that the Tony Awards on the Hoffman Show, the Tonys said that I do think is interesting. I'll tell you what about next year that we should be keeping an eye on next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. talk a little more Wizards here on the Hoffman Show. You can give us a call, 301-230-0980. Also, of course, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. You missed any part of the show today, we'll tell you everything that you missed coming up before the end of it as we preview tomorrow's show as well. But just know that anytime, anywhere, you can check it out on demand in the Hoffman Show podcast feed. But Anthony, earlier when we had David Aldridge on the show, which was at 5 o'clock, if you missed Not My Beat today, how dare you? Top story of the day every day. David said something that I thought was really interesting, and is Aries Tony and Big Tony called in the last segment and talked about, everyone should be on the trading block this summer. David said that he thought the original plan, and I don't think that he says something like this unless he's got a little bit of intel, because he's David freaking Aldridge. He's the Hall of Famer. He knows things, right? He said that he thought this year would be like the descent year, and next year would actually be the year that they truly stripped it down to the studs. That they would trade some of these veterans this summer, and that next year would be like the, oh my God, they're terrible year. And part of that was motivated by, if you can win the draft lottery next year, there's two players, one of which has been kind of the number one guy for a while, and Cooper Flagg, who's going to Duke, and then there's a young man who's in the NBA Africa Academy who just committed to Duke as well, that are kind of going to battle for that number one pick. And if this other kid's as good as Cooper Flagg, that means there's two gems in that draft, compared to this year where people are pretty mixed and don't really necessarily think that there's a generational talent. You're kind of in the Anthony Bennett draft. That next year is the year that they really try to stink it up. And there's part of me that wonders, if this is the studs, what's underneath? What could possibly be next? And it just makes me think about what is the plan then this offseason? They trade away, what are they adding? What does this team even look like next year? And I also remind people, though, that the Anthony Bennett draft, there was a Giannis Antetokounmpo guy. So if there's a tall guy from Greece, they should definitely take him. That's the lesson there. Trade back to 15 and take him. No, but in all seriousness, Ant, I think we're headed towards a very interesting Wizard summer, because logic says they should have traded Tyus at the deadline. There's no way he's a part of their long-term plans if Jordan Poole is a part of their long-term plans. Now, if they just plan on unloading Poole for literally anything, do they give up a draft pick? That seems insane, considering that's all they want, to unload him. Or can they convince someone to take, hey, we'll give you Jordan Poole for a couple second rounders. You just got to take on the contract, which now will be in, a couple years left. The $30 million that he's going to make is not nearly as damaging as $30 million was 10 years ago. Do you sign and trade Tyus? Hopefully, I think. And again, I would love to keep Tyus in town for selfish reasons, because he's the best interview, maybe in all of DC sports. I love having him on the show, but they gotta make basketball decisions, not Hoffman Show decisions. And then Kuz seems like a no-brainer. This should be, and again, I love Kuz. I would have Kuz on the show weekly if he would do it. It's not personal. And by the way, part of the reason I think that this should be the case is because I think Kyle Kuzma is a very good basketball player who has a role to play on a championship team, and a bigger one than he played on the championship that he already won with the Lakers. I'm not trying to run Kyle Kuzma out of town. I'm just thinking, if you're the Wizards, this has to be Kuz's last year. And then it's what do you do with a guy like Corey? Because he should have value. You traded DeLon Wright, or you waived DeLon Wright. You didn't wind up getting anything for him in a buyout situation. You trade Gafford. Bagley seems like a building block, so that's nice. But then you kind of come back with this core next year of Bilal, Jordan, Bagley, and then whatever else you bring in. Denny, should include Denny, and whatever else you bring in. Or is Denny a trade candidate this offseason? Because if I'm a team looking for a bench playmaker, or another starter who can get out and run, can defend a little bit, can shoot it a little bit, can make some plays off the dribble, I'm interested in Denny Advia. His contract's not crazy. So I just think that this Wizards team, and this ultimately I'll answer my own question now. and I'm curious your answer too before we hit the break, have you lost faith in the operation at all? I haven't. I just don't think we're at a point, like, they underestimated, they missed, they screwed up this year, but not in a way that hurt them permanently. And we're not at a point in the process where results matter, so who cares, is kind of my ultimate takeaway here.
Yeah, I don't think I've completely lost faith in the process. And I've just browsed the last couple of drafts just to see if we could pull off, what the Thunder did a couple of years ago and being able to, trade for a young Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, Shai, he wasn't this when he was in L.A., but at least he had, like, some type of promise. And I'm looking at all the guys that have been drafted the last couple of years, and there's not a lot of guys that are, promising, or they're being used, like, with their respective teams, like, right now. Like, Shai wasn't necessarily being used.
Right.
When Tyrese was with De'Aaron Fox, he wasn't necessarily – he was playing, but
it's like when Harden went to Houston. Yeah. Like, all of a sudden they get in a new role, and you're like, whoa, that dude can handle that.
Exactly. So I don't think the Wizards, at the trade deadline, they saw a guy that, they could, hopefully try to build the team necessarily around. And I just think because they were stuck in that situation, and then, what we already have with the roster, I just think they were in a lose-lose, so they might as well just stay pat.
But here's the other problem with that plan, right, is like, in order to get Tyrese Halliburton, you need Domas Sabonis.
Yeah.
Like, in order to get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you need to have Paul George.
Yeah.
They don't have that. Like, unless they can be the third team in a trade that helps facilitate a trade that has no other shot otherwise, and they get stupid lucky. Like, they don't have a path. Like, we're still 2 years away from having that.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know if I've lost faith, but I just know it's going to take some time. And all I can do right now is just trust the process. Like,
for sure. They're on the...
It sucks, though.
It sucks. It's miserable. But they're on the Philly path. They're on the Orlando path. They're on the Minnesota path.
Yep.
It's purely draft. We're not going to get the other thing. And maybe, like, if you get Cooper Flagg, can you then trade for someone or sign someone a la Harden, a la even the role pieces, the J.J. Redicks, the Tobias Harrises, because all of a sudden guys want to play here because they want to play with the young stud? Maybe. But they got to get that piece in, and they don't have it. And it's just going to involve being bad so that you can eventually be good. But that's the only way to do it in the NBA. There is no other plan unless your team is the Los Angeles Lakers or the Miami Heat. Just the way it goes. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Great show today. We'll tell you what you missed if you're just joining us. That way you can make sure to know what to hunt for on the podcast. And we'll preview tomorrow's Friday edition of the show next before Real Things, Real People Said in Real Microphones here on the Team 980. Wrapping up here on the Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We've had a heck of a show today. If you missed any of it, definitely worth checking out on the podcast feed. We started off the show talking about the situation in Virginia for Monumental Sports, trying to build the new arena. It got shot down. Why? How? You hear from Eric Flack for WUSA 9. You'll hear and then at 4:30 we had Teo Armas from the Washington Post. So really good insight and also kind of how we got to this point on an even bigger level than just through this. I started the show talking about how I think the state of modern politics led us to this very, very, I would say, interesting moment for for Monumental and Glenn Youngkin and the state senators down there and everything that's happening. So commentary on that off the top of the show. David Aldridge joined at 5 o'clock talking about that. But we've spent mostly on the court Wizards power rankings at 5:30. Then we'll take command preview at 6. All this available as well as the Wizards talk over the last half hour on the Hoffman Show podcast feed. Anthony, unrelated. Last night, did you see the U.S. Women's National Team Canada game?
I did not.
You didn't see any highlights of this?
I did not.
Bro.
Oh, hold on. Was there a fight?
No fight.
Okay.
Rainstorm.
Whoa.
They played, this game is in San Diego where it's never supposed to rain. I've never seen anything like this. Never in my life.
It's never supposed to rain, but it's a rainstorm.
If you want to see one of the wackiest sporting events you will ever see in your entire life, just watch a couple of highlights from last night's game between the U.S. and Canada in the CONCACAF W Gold Cup. There was so much rain on the field because there were two games. It was a semifinal. So Brazil beat Mexico, and it was in the pouring rain. They can't put the tarp on the field, so it just keeps raining. The drainage held up pretty well for that first game. U.S. and Canada take the field at 7:15 local time, and there is so much water on the field. When they went to kick the ball would stop. It was like the ball had brakes. Not like, hey, let me kick it and have the ball roll.
There's no lead passing.
No. Any pass had to be in the air.
I'm crying.
It was the craziest thing. So the first goal of the game comes from Jaden Shaw, the teenager from Texas, who has now scored in her first 4 appearances, by the way. First U.S. national team player ever to do that. But literally, the Canadian defender tried to pass the ball back to the goalkeeper, and the ball stopped along the way, and Jaden Shaw ran up on it and put it in. It's crazy. And then the U.S. won in penalty kicks.
You're
watching some highlights. I'm not underselling this. It's one of the wackiest sporting things
The ball really did stop.
Dead stops.
Wow.
Wacky freaking bit. There. It seemed like the ref at one point was trying to say hey, we should stop the game. And I think the CONCACAF, the organizer of the game, it was no, or it's your call. And the ref was no, it's your call. And then so they just kept playing. But was it even soccer?
Unbelievable.
Crazy. They wound up winning the game in PKs. They're off to the final against Brazil on Sunday. In PKs, Alyssa Nair stopped 3 and scored 1.
The goalie?
Yeah, the goalkeeper scored a PK.
Wow.
Do you know? That's actually another fun fact that most people don't know. Typically, one of the best goal PK takers on the team is the goalkeeper. A lot of them are really good at it.
Was Hope Solo good at it?
I have no idea.
I've never seen her try.
I know Aubrey's good at it, the Spirit goalkeeper. She's taken a couple in her day.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the wacky bit of the day. Tomorrow on the show, Clinton Yates will join us. He's headed to South by Southwest this weekend. He's going to join us before he gets on the plane. What else we got tomorrow, Anthony?
So you know how yesterday you asked me, what do we have? And I said nothing. I was joking yesterday, but today I'm serious. We have nothing.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
We could definitely do a weekend preview tomorrow.
It is a Friday, though.
It's a Friday, and there's a ton of stuff happening this weekend. I mean, obviously, Wizards are going to be in the spotlight because they have Charlotte tomorrow. And if they can't beat Charlotte, they are in deep doo-doo. That Pistons losing streak is in play.
27 games. 27, Craig.
Brutal.
Man, you know what I need to do? If I bet that the Wizards will lose the game, they'll win the game. That's how bad my luck is.
You're willing to sacrifice your money for the sake of history?
I might have to.
All right. That sounds... You said it into a microphone. It's a real thing, and you're a real person.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Anthony, you missed the out time to give me the out time.
I'm still trying to do the math over here, Craig. All right, actually, I got the math now.
Do you?
Yeah.
When do I have to stop talking?
At 56:30.
56:30?
Yes.
All right, so we got 2 minutes and 15 seconds left in the show. All right, Draymond Green, always a great storyteller. Draymond Green telling the first time he was ever on Klay Thompson's boat.
First time I actually went on Klay boat. Thing happened with Rudy Gobert. I went to LA and I was coming back and I flew into Oakland. The Bay Bridge was shut down. There was a protest on the Bay Bridge, so I couldn't get to the gym. Klay came on his boat across the water to pick me up in Jack London Square in Oakland. Eric Housen tried to get the cops to escort me through. Nothing could work. You could not get across. So he came across the boat. Him and E. Housen came and picked me up. And this was right after I had got at Rudy Gobert, so it was perfect timing.
He needed the water.
He needed that boat ride. Yeah, I needed to get there, but I just got 5 games for you. He came and scooped me, and that was my first time on the.
First time on the yacht. It's on Carmelo Anthony's new podcast.
That's a cool way to, make up for, I mean, Draymond's actions is Draymond's fault, but he was in the situation because of Klay.
Was that? Oh, yeah. That was.
Yeah.
That was when Gobert kind of went after Klay a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's still Draymond's fault.
Yeah.
It's still a funny story.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, I'm stuck. Hey, Klay, you got the boat? We got to go get Draymond. Wacky bit.
Just fire it up.
I have been a press member at many press conferences, waiting on many different people, coaches, players, executives. Nikola Jokic early yesterday. Nikola, what are you doing here?
What? This is awesome. Nicole, why did you want to come out so early to talk to us today?
Because I had things to do.
The thing is, they laughed. He was serious.
He's serious.
He's like, I have things to do. What are your very stupid questions? So I can give you my very simple answers, and I have things to do. There are horses to be tended to. That is our show for today. Missed any part of it? YouTube, podcast, rewind feature. We'll see you tomorrow here on the Team 980.